flag salute?
Certainly.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sunshine Law Statement, all requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been met for this meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Oradell. Notice of this meeting was filed with the record in Town News and all persons requesting such notice. Mr. Darian, would you read the mission statement?
The Oradell Public School District is dedicated to the ongoing pursuit of educational excellence through comprehensive, innovative curriculum and instruction. The district is committed to providing opportunities for social, emotional, and academic discovery to foster curiosity, courage, and character. Our goal is to prepare our students to become lifelong learners who are self-directed, resilient, productive, responsible citizens.
Thank you. Roll call.
On the roll, Mrs. Acosta. Here. Mr. Del Greco.
Here.
Mrs. Downey will not be here. Mr. Nutlin will not be joining us. Mrs. Norian.
Here.
Mrs. Walker will not be joining us. Mr. Walsh.
Here.
Mr. Darian.
Here.
Mrs. Nichols.
Here, open to the public for agenda items only. Not seeing any, we'll move forward. We have a guest in the audience this evening, I believe. You're going to introduce our guests later? Yes, technically two guests. What about two guests? Well, no. We have one guest in the audience this evening, but should you want to make your announcement now?
Can do it during my report.
Go ahead, do it
Should I do my whole report?
now. No, just this
Oh,
part.
This evening, you'll have the opportunity to approve our two new assistant principals for the 24-25 school year. This was an amazing search. Both these individuals should be incredibly proud to be able to accept this position, but our community should be incredibly grateful as well. There were 135 applicants for the assistant principal's position at Oradell Public School. The first round of interviews saw us interviewing 19 applicants from that 135, and that first round interview was done by Mrs. Hawley and myself, as I shared previously, on a late Thursday night, Friday night, and all day Saturday. And the second round of interviews, thank you to the parents and the staff members who joined that panel, again giving up about 9 hours of their time to interview our final round candidates. And the two candidates that were unanimous by the committee are our current director of curriculum, Amy Brancato, as the new assistant principal for grades K through 3, and that is a change. It was previously K through 2. However, as we've been looking at behaviors and knowing as a district that we embrace constantly looking at what our district needs, that position will be the K through 3 assistant principal, and Mr. Nevin Warner as the assistant principals in grades 4 through 6. You already know about Amy's background in curriculum and her work ethics that is known throughout the entire county. We call her the Energizer Bunny, and Mrs. Hawley continues to marvel at the fact that when you work with Mrs. Brancato on any project, whether that is testing or curriculum, she doesn't drink water, she doesn't go to the bathroom, and she doesn't eat. So you just get used to that. And we know that she will bring the same tireless effort to the position, and she is so excited. Most people don't want to make the move from director of curriculum to assistant principal. In fact, I think NJPSA looked at her like she was a little crazy when she called them about it. But the truth is, Amy's motivation is so pure. She has been working so hard on developing a curriculum to lead this district forward. And when she came to talk to me about the position, she said, I want to see it in action now. And who better to see it in action than the person that's been working behind the scenes to create it. And in Nevin, I'm a little scared that I might not be able to go to River Edge anytime soon. Nevin is joining us after 6 years as the science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics and assessment supervisor in River Edge. And what Nevin brings is something we're really looking towards. We know we have some people at OPS that have a background in language arts, and we really were looking for a candidate to help us continue to grow our mathematical practices and our technology integration. And Nevin is the perfect match for that. So I am very excited that I know I am providing Mrs. Hawley with a team that's going to continue to lead OPS forward. And congratulations to both of you, and let's get ready to work.
So welcome, Mr. Warner. We're excited to have you on the other side of the tracks. We heard amazing things about you, and Ms. Brancato, you know, we love you. And I'm upset that you're leaving curriculum because you're so good at it, and I'm afraid of who's going to take your position. I don't think we even started interviewing, but we may have to bring you into a curriculum meeting still, just for old time's sake, just so you can hear us argue. But yeah, really happy to have both of you on board as our VPs, looking for a good new year. Can't wait. It's going to be exciting. I know Ms. Hawley is excited. Yeah, it's going to be good. So happy to have you. Of course, now the most important thing of the evening is the parade is coming up next week. Everyone marching? Are you going to be around? You probably won't be around. So, Mr. Darian, are you going to coordinate with Mr. Iapelli on the truck?
I guess so.
Buy your candy. Get ready. Are you going to be marching?
Find your shirt.
Well, we know how much I love the parade. It's
Mr.
one of my
Iapelli, are you
highlights.
marching with us this year?
Unfortunately, I'm not. I have a wedding.
Who gets married on July 4th?
It's the day before, and we had plans to be away.
Sure it is. You're going to miss a good time. Okay. Do you want to go on to the rest of your report? Is there any more?
Sure.
All right.
So many people think that when school ends, everything calms down at Oradell Public School, and that could not be farther from the truth. So we ended, I think it was last week, we had our traditional sixth grade commencement on the front lawn, and it really was a beautiful day. It was a little bit hot. We haven't had a commencement in a long time where midway through, people were starting to look for the shade and going like this. It really is only 45 minutes, but it was a beautiful ceremony. It is something that if anyone knows me, when I first got to Oradell Public and I saw the number of events that the sixth grade did, I said, this is absolutely nuts, and I'm going to change this. And the truth is, commencement is something I hope will never change, because the tradition of it is something that not everything has to change to be more modern. Not everything has to grow. Some things are perfect just the way they are, and that is how I feel about commencement. Thank you to all of the people that helped to make that happen. And right from there, our sixth graders had their lunch, and the next day they had their breakfast, and they then got to watch a beautiful montage of their time at OPS. We then did step up into our new classrooms. We tried something new this year in grades entering first grade and entering second grade, where students didn't necessarily go to their classroom for the new year, but they got to experience what first grade life was like. And they visited all 5 classrooms, and they read a book, reading parts of it in each of those classrooms. And so that was something new, and you can't see what works if you're not willing to sometimes try something new. So we tried it, we saw some really good benefits from it, and we'll make some decisions next year based on that. And as soon as that was done, we said, okay, let's bring like 400 children into the building. So All the World's a Stage has been using our auditorium. The rec camp has been using the NPR in the back fields and some of our classrooms down by the Child Study Team wing. And we brought in 80 kinder campers and about 117 exploration students. So there are children beading, there are children doing readers theater. Mr. Butcher's teaching a scratch coding class. It's really a great opportunity for our teachers to share some of their passions. If you want to make stuff with resin, you go see Mrs. Constantinou. But the building is alive, and I always think that the school year is going to end, and I'm going to take a nice deep breath and relax. And it hasn't happened yet, so now I'm going to say and pretend it's going to happen after explorations. But I'm thrilled with our hires. We have a few more hires to make. You will notice that your personnel agenda this week is actually the largest one we have ever put together. We were trying to get to Z. We're just a few letters short. So it's going to be a great year with the hires that we are already making, and we are already looking forward to next year. And that concludes my report.
You reminded me, I also wanted to say graduation was lovely. Mr. Del Greco gave a very nice speech, and his daughter was in the class. And thank you to the admin team and all the sixth grade teachers to do a great job with our graduation, because it was a lovely event. And I didn't think it was too hot, but it's been hotter. but it was, yeah, but it was lovely. The kids were lovely. It was nice. Mr. Iapelli?
Yes, so we have started construction on the roof project. They are starting with the demolition. There's some masonry work that needs to be done first. So we're starting our summer projects. We will be going out to, we are going out to bid currently right now, and the job for the replacement of the kindergarten HVAC unit. We should have those bids and recommendations for the second board meeting in July. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Moving to committee reports, before we start, under administrative items, we have a resolution is being walked on. It's going to be added as A4. I will read it. Administrative A4, revised 5/1/24 HIB report. It is hereby moved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Education affirms the revised decisions and findings of the listed HIB reports as reported by the superintendent to the Board of Education, 3.15.2024.6. I'm just going to pass these out. If you can give to those board members. And you can pass these around. And Mr. Darian, would you take them administrative?
Yes, I'd like to introduce 4 administrative items. It's A1 through A4.
Do I have a second? Second by Mrs. Norian. Any questions? Call the question.
On the roll, Mrs. Acosta. Yes. Mr. Del Greco.
Yes.
Mrs. Norian.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Mr. Darian.
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes, buildings and grounds, Mr. Darian?
Yes, I have no update. We did not have a B&G meeting since our last board meeting. So with that, I'd just like to introduce items B1, but it's not listed in the agenda as to who wants access to the building.
I'll
So
second it.
if you could make sure that we update that. Okay. Or can you tell us who it is?
There weren't any. She just left it. It should have just been
Oh.
removed.
So I'm not introducing items B1. There's nothing
No,
to introduce.
it's
Okay.
a-
So,
It's an error, and I will
I'll
take
second it
responsibility
anyway.
for the error.
no, that's fine. I wasn't sure. So I have nothing to report and nothing to introduce tonight.
And the superintendent just reminded me, I skipped the minutes, so we have review of June 12th. I'm just going to throw them in here. Any questions or comments, please email Mr. Iapelli. I would like to go back and do the approval of the minutes for May 22nd. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve minutes of May 22nd.
And I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Norian. Any questions? Call the question.
On the roll, Mrs. Acosta. Mr. Del Greco.
Yes.
Mrs. Norian.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Mr. Darian.
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes, curriculum, Mrs. Norian.
I have no report at this time.
Do we need to meet for anything? No, for curriculum, math, or anything that you wanted to go over? Nothing?
Well, I think curriculum is going, I mean, we've approved people to work on curriculum, so I think that there are things going on.
Another couple weeks, and we need to meet.
Yeah.
Finance, Mrs. Acosta. You do.
I'll second it.
Any questions? I have a question, Mr. Iapelli, the maintenance reserve, if we put away 300,000, is that going to put us over? I mean, we have enough there that could go over our reserve if we had to, like if something happens at year end?
Yes.
We're way over, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The emergency reserve that replaces, brings us to our limit.
Any other questions? Call the question.
On the roll, Mrs. Acosta. Mr. Del Greco.
Yes.
Mrs. Norian.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Mr. Darian.
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes. Delegate report, Mr. Walsh.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Mrs. Walker is in here. Mrs. Norian, would you like to take personnel?
I'd like to present items F1 and
I'll second it.
Questions? Call the question.
On the roll, Mrs. Acosta? Mr. Del Greco?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes,
Mr. Darian?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes. Public Relations, Mrs. Downey is not here. You need a meeting before the retreat? We need a meeting before the retreat. So maybe next week? Possibly? Okay, so let's check in with Mrs. Downey and we'll go from there. Open to the public? What, Mrs. Hawley? Yes, we have things to do. Old business or new business? No old business, no new business? I do need a motion to go into closed session, Mr. Darian, for legal issues, personnel issues, and the superintendent's evaluation.
I'll second.
I make a motion that we go into executive session.
I'll second it.
Second by, wait, who made the motion?
Yeah,
And you
I
you made the
seconded it
motion?
before he
Greg?
even made the motion.
All right, so Mr. Darian and Catherine.
I third it.
Roll call?
On the roll, Mrs. Acosta? Mr. Del Greco?
Yes.
Mrs. Norian?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Darian?
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols?
Yes, we will not be taking any action afterwards, so we don't see you. Happy July 4th.
Watch for the candy.